talk is really good. It's a panel discussion on creating a not-for-profit hacker lab. I'm going to hand over. We've got Vic Vandal and Kerbob, two people who have been extraordinarily instrumental in building this hacker lab and creating a free and open space for people to do all kinds of hackery. I think Unq is on this panel too, right? And Nick, come on, get up here. Nick Fury on Q. So let's give a round of applause to all these people. They're fantastic. Particularly Unq because he has my hair, or at least a smaller version of it.
Will there be any mention of Cassie and Andrew?
Okay. Somebody want to drive? So, welcome to creating and operating a hacker lab. Panel discussion amongst myself and my esteemed colleagues. So, first topic of this talk, or this panel, is location, location, location. Oh, yes. Okay. Problematic locations to avoid. So, you're going to set up a hacker lab, you need to know where you're going to set it up. Don't do it in someone's house, basement, garage, because then you have to intrude on their, personal property to go hang out there and do stuff. That's a bad idea. Someone's office, job, work, well, there'll probably be some kind of shady activities going on there, so you really don't want it to be there. What must you have? What must you look for in location? 24/7, 365 days, physical access to the building and offices, some privacy and security. Security because you don't want your stuff to disappear. Adequate air conditioning and heat, especially air conditioning. Obviously, you're going to be running a bunch of machines. And the lab we have today, it is really hot in there. So when we show up, we crank down the air conditioning to cool things off. Adequate electricity. You're going to be putting a lot of gear in your hacker lab, hopefully. So you need to be able to power it, or else it's no good. You may need 220 access. You may have some pretty big hardware that sucks a lot of power. Internet access. You need inbound as well as outbound. So otherwise you're limited in a lot of things you can do. You want a restroom, and male and female facilities clean.
Inbound and outbound?
You have to be able to afford it. So if you get yourself in over your head, your lab won't be open long. You might be able to make rent for a few months, and then you can't maintain it anymore, and your lab shuts down. So you really need to shop around. It needs to be convenient. So our lab is in Raleigh because that's where our biggest crew is in Raleigh. So if we had a lab in Wilmington or somewhere else, that would not be convenient to the users who were in that lab most often. And you need room for both hardware and hackers. So, and we're hitting this wall right now, and we're looking to go back. Okay, we're hitting this wall right now. We're actually looking at moving our lab because we've acquired a lot of equipment fairly rapidly and are getting a big influx of equipment right now. I just had to turn down a bunch of equipment because we have no room anymore. We can't get ourselves in there with the equipment. Moving on, location. Here's some options. One is a medieval castle. The pros are it's dark, gloomy, desolate. Could inspire terror in the peasants or townsfolk. You may get a moat, gargoyles that come to life. Problem with using a medieval castle is they're really hard to locate or rent in the United States. So we looked at this option, it just didn't pan out for us.
No internet access.
Another option, secret underground headquarters. Really cool, inconspicuous entrance. Could be a cave or a tree or an outhouse. Low energy bills.
Unless it's Cheyenne Mountain.
Yeah, low energy bills because pretty much the temperature is maintained in these caves, about 45 degrees or so, 55 degrees all year long, which is good because you have hardware that needs to be kept cool. It can be huge, you can expand really deep into the core of the earth. And you have that only a madman could live here ambiance. The cons are this is really expensive to build, so we looked into this option and it really just didn't pan out for us. Next option, haunted woods. get a spooky atmosphere. It's real foggy in the dark. You have tree branches and thorn thickets to tear up the hair and clothes of trespassers. And the other inhabitants, be it wolves, ghosts, demons, whatever, may stimulate your creativity. You may come up with some really cool projects by this. The problems with this environment is it's not electronics or electricity friendly, and you could have really expensive internet access issues. So we didn't go with this option. Next option, desert island. Hey, exotic earthly paradise, less stress away from the hustle and bustle of city life. Island natives could provide free slave labor. You could mesmerize them with a lighter or a mirror. Really awesome. Get the minions to do your bidding. You can create your own hacking laws with no extradition treaty. So you can pretty much have free reign to do
It doesn't
anything.
work because they come with guns. Free state tries it all the time, and they always come with guns and I'll shut you down.
They've got guns.
There is no extradition treaty in Dominican Republic because I've often looked at where I would go, things like that. I had to be in that situation. So anyway, the guns thing, you could have your own defense system. Cons are you have really expensive hardware shipping costs. I mean, that's really expensive. You get a server, it's going to cost you, $10,000 to get it to your place. Lack of electricity, and you have internet access issues. Moving on, space station. We were really interested in this. It gives you a mobile base of operations. It's secure. I mean, who's going to attack you out there? You might get Star Wars or Strategic Defense Initiative technology included in your space station. You can retrofit it with disruptor rays and a cloaking field. Something we were really excited and interested about. And if you had a nuclear holocaust on Earth, you'd be, wouldn't even notice. You'd be happy up there. The cons are alien attacks and asteroid collisions.
So money's not an option. Money's not a problem there.
Well, money is also a problem. But you know what? We were so scared of these things, we just said, nah, we can't do it. Okay, so other location options, ancient tomb. Other hackers would be envious of your gothic decor. A dungeon, complete with death traps.
My house is pretty gothic.
An abandoned church, you could decorate it with blasphemous altars and upside-down crosses and stuff.
My house.
Or a theater, great for holding conferences like this. Awesome screen and sound. Next slide. Okay, those didn't pan out for us, so we came down. We excluded all the things that we were interested in and we couldn't do. So here's what we really came up with, something that we would recommend to others to try and look for in a hacker lab. Corporate tower, you have a convenient central location in a city. It provides an air of legitimacy while sheltering the evil hacking going on inside. It usually includes all these good things that you need from that other slide. Restrooms, AC, electricity, snack and vending machines, parking, elevators, rather than going up and down stairs, and relatively affordable. If you have a downtown area that has, some kind of old areas of downtown warehouse district, you might be able to get some lab space very affordable. Look at Class C properties, and you get good deals. A warehouse or loft may provide many or most of these other, these are important. If you're looking to open your own hacker lab, look at these things, look at them, look at them, look at them. Every place you go look at, take this list and say, okay, is this going to work? A warehouse or a loft may be very large and allow you to put a lot of stuff in there. Location tips. So I was involved in a project called No Lab, which was New Orleans, Louisiana lab. We opened that up, I don't remember when, at least 10 years ago. And I took the lessons learned from No Lab here. And No Lab was inspired by the loft. And what I brought here was the lessons learned there, some of the stuff we've seen on the previous slides. But we had a corporate tower downtown, and it was affordable. We had, I think, 7 offices for $250 a month. We had room out the yin yang. We had hardware everywhere. Class C properties, which I mentioned, affordable, met all our basic needs. Wasn't the nicest, shiniest new building, but it really rocked. I mean, it met our needs. We had an office on the 10th floor, really big, and that was the top floor, and we had access to the roof. We used to have parties up there, and then we had a bunch of other offices on the 4th floor. And establishing good relationship with the landlord could reap big dividends. We did some free work for them, helping them out with their network, and they paid us back in kind by providing us cheap rent and allowing us to expand our operations and do a lot of other things. And another lesson learned is crackheads who burn down abandoned firehouse attained for lab equals not good. Because that's where our lab was originally going to be. One of the guys in the NOLA 2600, his dad hooked us up with this, no longer used firehouse that had the pole and everything. And we were going to move in there in like a month. And
Did it still work?
Yeah. And so some crackhead was, freebasing or something and lit the place on fire and the whole freaking thing burned down. So crackheads, no good.
Presumably though, when you move in, you will kick the crackheads out, so that will no longer be a problem.
Right, but they were there before we moved in.
Plus they had crack. So,
I mean, the pole was going to serve dual purpose, quick exit, and we could have thought of some other things to do with the pole. Yes. Okay, so location, important. Any questions on location? Excellent. So, funding your lab. You can pay the bills by doing bake sales, open a lemonade stand, arms sales to desperate nations, sell your virus to evil empires, which is something the professor was talking about. We could exploit that. Larceny and extortion, or telemarketing, the most evil of all. Here's our marketing 101 plan we put together. It starts with spam, some subliminal advertising. So we actually have subliminal advertising in this presentation. It's like, give us money, give us money, give us money. I hope it's working. Nigerian internet scam duplication. Promote advertising and sponsorship as healthy extensions of capitalism. Buy a suave suit and unusual glasses. For the designated marketing or sales guy, devise a campaign message with a simple call to action, which is in our subliminal messaging here, send cash now. Purchase some prime spots in broadcast and print media, coerce endorsements from idiot celebrities, and incorporate in Bahamas, open bank account, and wait for flood of cash. Moving on. Here's our serious money plan. Establish your core lab membership with persons with jobs, persons who have income or some kind of trust fund, who are willing and able to contribute reliably month after month. Otherwise, you will not meet your rent one month. You'll be under a lot of stress. Somebody will have to come up with more money than they could afford, and it's a bad situation. So the way we funded No Lab and the way we're funding the CarolinaCon group lab right now is through this method. We basically have people who are contributing monthly to pay the bills. You incorporate as a legitimate nonprofit. We did that in New Orleans. We've done that here. So that the members and anyone else who gives money to this venture can write it off as a charitable contributions. And us as individuals, Kurt, Bob, and myself, and maybe on Q, I don't think he's mentioned it, we wrote off a lot of money on taxes this year, like $3,000 plus, because we gave that much into the lab this year.
Is that just money or hardware also?
Hardware, yeah, because we gave a lot of hardware. Whether or not we paid that much for the hardware before we gave it to them or not, but it was worth that much.
commit tax fraud on camera.
Hey,
Just some free legal advice.
No, the hardware was worth that much. Could have been sold on eBay for that much. So that's what I wrote it off as. You can pass the plate at 2,600 meetings to get, if you're short one month or just every month. Hey, if you have 2,600 members who are coming to the lab, doing work, hanging out, whatever, they're benefiting by the ability to go there, work on machines, and learn something. Ask them for $5. If you got 20 people, give you $5, you got $100 towards your rent.
Can I write that off?
Yeah, you can write off $5. I mean, if it exceeds your standard deduction, it's all good. So
Just don't get audited.
I itemize. I'm not worried
So
about.
you give receipts for these?
Yes, we give receipts. We are a legitimate nonprofit organization, and we do give receipts. You can establish a slick website that outlines your nonprofit lab mission of providing free technology education opportunities for underprivileged students. That's what we do. You know, you might think, oh, you're a bunch of evil hackers, whatever. You're really just writing malware all day. That's not true. The real focus of the CarolinaCon Group Lab is to have an open, facility for people to come in there and learn stuff and work on real hardware and real software rather than learning from a book, because you'll learn a lot more that way. Contact public affairs personnel of wealthy corporations and ask for them to consider contributing annually to the nonprofit mission. Mention that they can write it off and show their commitment to educating underprivileged students, and that helps market their own generous, noble image at a very nominal cost. This one, we want to explore. We have not explored that. We never did it in New Orleans. We have not done that here, but this would make things easier for some of us that are footing major parts of the bills, certainly. And then you can have pay for services, whether it be, hey, we'll have rainbow tables, upload your hashes, crack them, whatever. Do vulnerability scans, just use CPU time, whatever. These are things you can do to generate revenue for your lab in your town, wherever it may be. And now, if anybody has any questions on funding, I thank you, and I will hand it over to Kerbob.
One of the first things that we did is we started looking for the places for the lab. So, go ahead. Where do you get the info for the lab? What I did is I would look through things like the newspaper, Craigslist, other places like that. I was working for a company that dealt with some real estate agents, so I talked with them, and I would just get any info I could get. A lot of the stuff was, a lot of the info came from members of the 2600 that would just drive around and they'd see signs in vacant places. So they'd give me the info, and later I would call them. So a lot of times you'll come across a place that's for rent, and it may be like $4,000, but what I would do is I would still call those companies. A lot of times they would, they'd have smaller areas that they weren't, they didn't have ads or things like that. Shared offices, we had a lot of places that I contacted that they had shared offices. The bad thing about a shared office is we're hackers. So if we're in a place that it's not our shit there, we're probably gonna mess with it. So, so everyone, as soon as they said it's a shared environment, I said thank you, but no thank you.
Just out of curiosity, not that we're malicious or anything. And also from a shared facility perspective, you have people who are scary looking like Arcane coming to hang out.
Ow, man.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and another
I scare even the hackers.
Another problem with the shared office is also they expected you to share it 9 to 5,
Yeah.
and we're going to be there,
And we share all the time.
10 o'clock till 3 a.m. or 6 a.m. Many places won't call you back. You're going to have to call them 3 or 4 times because they don't recognize your name. You're not a large company, so I've had to call places many times. What's available, some of the things that Vic went over, but when you get to the location, even though they say they have these things, check it out. Electricity, air conditioning, and heat, are those things, available with what you pay in rent. Bathrooms, we checked out, Vic and I went to a facility that you could actually store things, and they had an air-conditioned area that probably could have worked, and I asked them about the restrooms, and they said, see that outhouse right there? So we decided.
And we thought about Yori, for
Yeah.
us, we wouldn't have to sit
Right.
on it, but we thought about Yori and we nixed that idea.
Right, and the same place we also would
And
have
Chick
the-
Fury, who comes
Yes.
there more than Yori.
Oh, she
was
burned.
With the internet, we would have had to send set up internet there also, and it would have been a pain. So
Yeah,
you can find a place that has internet already
Yeah,
in
talk
the
about
building.
what we were gonna do at that location.
We were going to,
I mean, two options.
yeah, we were going to climb the telephone poles and put repeaters across till we got to the main office, and then we were going to hook up cable in the main office. Or we had so
Or we
many
were gonna
things.
dig a trench and
Yeah.
run a cable. And I mean, it was a long trench, man. It was either gonna be long-range wireless that
Yeah.
we hooked up, or dig a long trench and run wire.
And when you start asking the people if we can like screw things to the top of the building or dig
The
trenches.
moment you mentioned the term subterranean directional logging,
Yeah.
right out.
They kind of get a little.
We have to go
squirmish.
under the
Yes.
sidewalk. We're just
Exactly.
gonna bust the sidewalk.
Yes.
Subterranean directional boring, never the
Yes.
thing that you want to mention.
And cost, I mean, always cost. It comes down to, they'll tell you a number, and when you get there, you know, the square footage doesn't look like the square footage they told you on the phone.
Also, you know, is there extra cost for the utilities?
Yeah. Right.
Weigh in all your costs.
Looking at the location, will your rack system fit in there? I mean, I looked at places that I almost had to duck down, so.
Just to say a word on the rack system and fitting it in somewhere, we've actually acquired two recently, huge honking racks. They're actually pretty big. I mean, considering they're these old compact racks.
Korean chick.
That is Chesky Hammer
Look, everyone's laughing at the damn joke.
So anyway, we our lab is on the second story of this building. There's no elevator access, and we had to haul these racks up the stairs. And the stairs are fairly narrow. I mean, I barely fit
Very
standing there.
windy.
And they're also windy, yeah. So it makes getting down hard because you're typically drunk by the time you're leaving, and it makes getting racks up hard. So keep that in mind when you're actually looking for a location.
Well, yeah, and also, I didn't even tell my esteemed colleagues this, but earlier this week, my employer was getting rid of a Sun storage rack servers. It had like, I don't know, a couple terabytes of data, and Arcane saw this stuff, weighed about 700 pounds, all these devices.
Yeah,
and it
I was
was-
gonna ask if you guys looked at like structural loading, because racks will be
Yeah, so
200 pounds per rack.
yeah, so the structural deal with that was, you know, when I tried to get it on my truck at work, I had 3 guys just to lean it over onto the truck bed, and it started bending the gate down and broke off some of the vinyl on the back of my truck. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna try and get this stupid thing up the stairs at the labs. It's gonna crush me in the headlines. Big vandal killed by server. But I decided it wasn't worth it, so I just rolled it over the freaking dumpster and it went to the trash.
But that's like Boy George being killed by a disco ball. I mean, it's pretty apropos, right?
It is.
You could have stripped it.
But you know what? Even stripping it, each one of these, server blades was like 150 pounds. It's been a pain in the ass. It just was not worth it, and I didn't have access to these guys quickly, and so.
And that's another thing we didn't think about when we were going through all this, is about climbing stairs with equipment. I mean, I had to carry an UPC, huge rack mounted one up 2 flights of steps, and it wasn't fun.
With me on his back.
That was fun. Other things, phone jacks, you might want to put a phone in, cable outlet. Our lab came with a T1, but we've ended up with some problems. So we've talked about getting cable in there, but I don't think it has a cable outlet, does it?
It does have a phone line, we can do speakeasy DSL.
And we'll be moving
Yeah.
before we
Yeah.
need
That's
that.
why we have.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's always a backup thing. You may want to check that, because a lot of times if you're renting somewhere, the cable company won't drill, and add outlets themselves.
Well, but you gotta be careful with cable and like residential style stuff, because if if they see suspicious activity, they're more likely to shut you off than a T1 provider.
True,
We weren't
true.
gonna go in for any residential stuff. I think we're probably gonna use business class.
Although at
Still,
NOLAD,
right.
we were in a corporate building and we got Bell South to give us a residential phone line, so we were able to hook up residential DSL, and so we had our internet access for like $50 a month. whereas everybody else in that building was paying $300 a month.
Plus,
That was a little social engineering, where we basically said, we're the janitors and we're gonna live in this office.
plus, as a good hacker will never be caught, so, no, but,
Sounds good.
but yes, and always check the bathrooms again, yeah, they may lie. Nick?
So one of the things I've been doing is, I'm a student and I obviously don't have the money to pay for rent, but I can't.
Or $160 textbooks.
Or $160 textbooks. That's from my talk yesterday, if anybody doesn't get the joke. But anyway, one of the things I can contribute is helping to administer the servers that we're going to have set up and helping to organize software library and things like that we're going to have inside the lab. So where do we get this hardware from? As these guys have already said, bankrupt moving businesses, state business auctions. Colleges do this a lot. They'll have like a place where they give away equipment or sell it for dirt cheap on like Friday mornings or something like that. NCSU does this. I've personally never been to it, although others have, and we've gotten some equipment from it, and we have a Sun machine in the lab right now that I think came from NCSU at one point. Dumpster diving is personally my way of doing things. You go scrounging around at your office and you can find all sorts of equipment that your company is probably throwing out, and they don't typically care what you do with it, as long as you're not selling it, which is a no-no. But anyway, you can get old hardware from other people. Relatives love giving me crap. I imagine other people have the same situation. You can steal it. I don't recommend it personally, but you can. Just don't get caught stealing it if you're going to steal somebody's laptop. Yeah. Don't get caught. It's a bad plan. And don't mess with banks. They're entirely too high risk.
Well, I also, there's a place, I live in Charlotte, and there's a place in Charlotte that recycles computers, and they basically take them from like banks.
That's actually a good point. I don't have that in here. Two places that you can often get all sorts of crazy stuff from are FreeCycle, which is a news group, which I love dearly, but unfortunately people in this area don't always respond in a timely manner. But you can put in requests for rack hardware or stuff like that. People provide it. Say, hey, I've got this. Come pick it up. And they'll give it to you. The other thing is looking for places that do recycling of computer components. But it's dumpster diving, really and truly.
Several of the computer servers that we have in our lab actually came from local thrift shops that received donations from banks.
Yeah, that's actually how to do it. I mean, literally go look for this stuff when companies upgrade and give their old stuff away, which it's typically not that old, 1 or 2 years at the most.
Yeah, on the stealing thing, back at No Lab, I had this kid, Conrad, who was a TA at University of New Orleans, and he asked me to go help him pick up a rack that they were getting rid of one night. So we go there, bring my truck, drive him there, and he goes into the building, and he's like, wait here by the load dock door. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting. And so he comes out, he's like, hurry, let's roll to the truck. I'm like, what are we hurrying for, dude? Just hurry, come on, let's go. And I'm like, why are we hurrying? He's like, come on, throw it in. I'm like, okay, now let's take off. I'm like, dude, is it okay for you to take the track? And you know what? I don't think it was.
So yeah, stealing is bad. Just don't get
Sounds
caught.
like there was a certain urgency to that situation.
And I don't condone that, and I don't do it. I might have played an unwitting part in that one encounter. But
So other
he
places,
never told me we were stealing.
well, other places you can get hardware by paying for it or the internet, especially sites like eBay now, where you can look for deals on all sorts of crazy stuff. I don't know, ancient hardware, quote unquote ancient, which is typically 2 years old, goes for sale very cheap on eBay all the time. You can find places locally to do this as well. Hamfest and swap meets are also good places to do it. We've got a couple of Hamfests in North Carolina. One of them is Asheville, and I think the other one is
Shelby.
Is it Shelby? I
There's
thought
Shelby,
there was one in
Raleigh,
Durham too at one point.
Cary has
The
one.
Durham one is Memorial Day weekend.
Kinston.
Oh well, we
Raleigh-
probably have a ham operator right here who can tell me all about this.
The Raleigh one was a few weeks ago.
Really? I'm not up on it. I haven't been paying attention. So, But they're awesome places to get equipment. All sorts of crazy stuff turns up at Hamfest. Lie detectors will turn up from time to time, which is super cool. Oscilloscopes, definitely. Depends on what you're looking for.
You didn't see all the wheelchairs running around?
Yeah. You can ask for handouts and giveaways. As I commented on in my talk last night, if you're a student or can claim to be one somehow, you can definitely ask for stuff from companies, and they love you because it's good business for them to give it to you, because they know, hey, if we give you this now, 10 years from now when you're working in a corporation, you're probably going to recommend our products because you got one for free and know how to use it. So.
They don't know me very well.
Well, that's how it goes. They call this donations in kind, so if you have to write a letter, that's what you use. Building a software library. We've got tons of free and open source software available. You get what you pay for, though. Keep that in mind. Development tools are definitely a must for a hacker lab, so compilers, IDEs, stuff like that. My personal favorite is GCC and Vim, but other people like to use other stuff. So, variety is the spice of life, meaning you gotta have a lot of different options for people. And you need documentation for all of this because it's worthless without it. I know that's how I learned most of what I've learned is through reading documentation. So read it. Make sure you have it there with the software. And try and get licensed legitimately. Don't have pirated software all around. Student and educational licenses are cheap. They're cheap when you can order them online or stuff. There's software warehouses that specialize in selling them at discounts, so that's how they get them. So. And to organize all this software, you need to look into cheap solutions, is my opinion. Paper CD cases and Sharpies are really cheap. You can go buy a stack of them, 200 paper CD cases, and a couple of Sharpies for, I don't know, $10. CD cases, really nice jewel cases, are thrown out all the time. I know that I had to send some CDs to CarolinaCon recently. I sent them with, I think, Windows 95 cases or something like that, so they were free. Grab them when they're in the dumpster, before they hit the dumpster. Look for cheap CD case racks. The industrial variety are typically stronger than the cheap, put it together yourself wooden variety that you find at Best Buy or wherever. The industrial variety are typically steel or aluminum based, and they work really well. You can find them pretty cheap if you go looking around. And now I'm going to pass it on to you for Lab Network.
Unfortunately, mine won't be as entertaining as the man with the funny hair, but we'll see how it goes.
That's very helpful.
Reasons to segment your network. Basically, what I'm going to talk about is the network segmentation, the LAN setup, the different types of networks in the lab.
Stealing your soul.
It's okay. Why do you use this thing here? All right. The reasons to segment your network to keep test machines away from production machines. Somebody breaks into one of your test machines. Somebody decides, with the capture the flag box, they're gonna denial of service it by accident. You don't want it screwing up the stuff you're actually trying to do in a production environment. Same thing with malware. Something gets released on one network, you don't want it transpiring over to another network. Also keeping DMZ services separated so that machine does become compromised, they can't use that to get on, again, your production environment. And it really just makes sense to segment out different parts of your lab to stop things from doing things that you're not planning on. This is a diagram of what our current setup is now. We do have some internet inbound access issues. When we talked to the landlord and said, yeah, we got a T1, well, we need inbound access. Oh, no problem, no problem. Let me let you talk to our network guy. Vic tried and tried and tried, and then finally tasked me with it. And I found the answer I finally get is, well, when that was put in, that was not a requirement. So we have no inbound access.
Well, no, it wasn't that it wasn't a requirement, it's that the service provider does not control the upstream routers. And
Which
that-
is, that was his reasoning is,
Well, it was a requirement.
it was a
They just-
requirement by us, but not a requirement when the landlord had it put in. Yeah, is what he's saying. So, we don't have any inbound access.
Well, we've done some reverse shells.
Yeah, outbound to get inbound.
It's like the core.
So, there's several ways you can do this. The most expensive way is to get like a PIX firewall. I have unrestricted license here, but after I did this slide, I was thinking you could probably use a restricted license and use sub interfaces so that you don't have to have somebody. What? Yeah.
The 515s are all unrestricted. The 501s are the ones with restricted licenses.
I think you can get a 515 with 2 interfaces with a restricted license. Also get yourself a 2950. Cheaper way, get a PC, have a 2950, use some sort of open source firewall software. The two I have listed here are Coyote and Wolverine, and I'll talk about those when we get there. The cheapest way is free software, regular Linksys 5-port switches, they're pretty cheap, and a PC with 4 network cards. Hit the button there. Most expensive way, if you want to get a unrestricted PICs, they're about $1,200 on eBay. You might be able to get one, as Nick says, people are throwing stuff out. You can get a 2950 for about $220 on eBay. The pros are it's enterprise class hardware. 2950 supports VLANs. The PICs also will provide VPN access. The cons are it's freaking expensive. I mean, we're trying to do this as cheap as possible, so if that being the case, that probably won't work out for you. Also, you got a steep learning curve if you aren't already familiar with the PICs. It does have the GUI, but it is issue. You run into issues with trying to make things work because Cisco does things a certain way. It thinks inbound's outbound, outbound's inbound, not like IP tables. The cheaper solution would be get $384. Get you a cheaper solution. Get you a PC, probably already have it, so that would be a pro for it. 2950 supports VLAN, so you can just have one switch with all 4 of your networks on it. The software you could use with Coyote Linux is free. The problem with Coyote Linux is it does not support VPN inbound access. So the same people that make Coyote make Wolverine. They want you to pay $50 a year for a license, which the people that made Coyote did the Linux router project. So that's where that came from. Not really many cons here. The only thing I can think of after the fact, after I created this, was the $50 a year license, which in not really a whole lot of money. The absolute cheapest possible way, use IPCOP. IPCOP has some access. The good thing about it is it has plugins. So that's the bad thing about it is it has plugins. So you load some plugins, you got to load them a certain way, a certain order, because one might step on another one. There's a lot of forums on IPCOP to figure out the best practices as to which one should be loaded when. So this is the cheapest way. You probably got network switches laying around. You probably got hardware laying around, and all your software is free. That's about it on that. Network backbone. I'm thinking what? It's been like a month since I've done these slides, so bear with me here. Looks like that's the type of PC you could use. Just a freaking cheap PC. I mean,
That's what we have.
Yeah, this is what we currently, Kerbob's kept set me straight. This is what we currently, as it says up at the top. Right here. This is what we currently have. We're running this, we got a 2950 with VLANs. We're using Indian, which is a fork of IPCOP. The reason why I chose Indian is I had never used it before. It has a better GUI. It also has VPN access built in. You don't have to use an add-in. But there is a traffic flow problem with the way IPCOP works, and because Indian is an IPCOP fork, it works the same way, and it has this issue. I'll show you maybe on the next slide. Yeah. What happens? IPCOP is made for 4 different networks here. The third one here that we made the lab is really made for wireless. So this is like a home setup type thing. The problem is it allows certain access to networks that you have no control over. By default, the LAN can get to the wireless, which would be our lab environment. So you cannot isolate that network between the LAN and the wireless. You can outbound from the lab to the LAN, but the LAN can always access this. Can also always access the DMZ. So you really have no way to actually isolate the network completely.
It's current.
I got you. I'm reading it first. I probably should have read this before I started here today, but the way to solve this this traffic flow problem is there's a IPCOP add-in called blockout traffic. What that does is it basically blocks out traffic. You go in and you say your MAC address for your admin interface is this, so that it doesn't actually block you from using that MAC address to enable the thing, so that it blocks all traffic, even the admin interface. So that's how you get around that. It would be the equivalent of a closed firewall, so you'll have to set up all your rules. There's not, as I said before, with the things pre-set up. So you have basically complete control over your rules. You can group addresses together so that you can say lab, inbound lab services. And then you can have, we're going to have, go back one day. Back, right here. We're going to have services hosted here. We're going to host HTTP here. We're going to host FTP. We're going to host Secure Shell. And you can group those as services and basically have one rule that says those services are allowed to host those ports out to the internet. So that's one cool thing about this add-in is it makes it easier for other people that don't understand it to be able to label it. This is what this does. You don't have to understand the port numbers or the addresses. It just makes it easier for the people who are new come in and make changes and not tell anybody. Like we had somebody come in and move some stuff, and they now I wish I had a picture because everything is labeled. Like the cable's labeled, the ports are labeled. There's a book, the manual is sitting on top of the computer, and then somebody moved some stuff and left it all unplugged. And it's like, well, I didn't know where it went. I was like, dude, the only way I could have labeled it better is, all right, this cable is one, and then there's one on the other side, and then 2 and 2.
Or attach big arrows.
But,
Post-it notes.
so, to get kind of off track here, it is good for documentation of your network so that other people can come in and actually pick up where you left off. Go to the next slide. Recommended IPCOP add-ons, of course, block out traffic. There's one called Zernia. I am not the linguist, so I'm gonna, as Vic knows. So this provides open VPN access. Another cool one is GUI listen ports. By default, IPCOP uses port 445 as its administration port for HTTPS. The problem with that is if you're on a home network, they're normally blocking that at the provider level so that you can't get control of your firewall from the outside. So that thing will allow you to make any port number you want, host the web GUI for making changes to it.
Isn't 445 also like
It's Microsoft DS. Yeah, and that's why they're blocking it, for that reason. So that people that plug their computer in aren't getting access to everybody and their brother, just to stop havoc from being wreaked on their home network. Connections is pretty cool. It shows all current connections, so you can see what is making a connection. It basically takes uses the stateless, the state tracking of. Hey Strider, everybody, meet Strider. Strider decided to make it. Take a seat. 13 minutes. Am I the last one?
Yeah, we can do this.
All right, I'll zip through this. There's Tripwire, everybody knows what that is. LogSend sends all your log files to Internet Storm Center. The cool thing about that is they track attacks throughout the entire internet, so you can contribute to that. They also send abuse letters. If you say, I want to send abuse, blah, 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 to whoever owns that IP. NTPD, you can host time for all your other devices on your networks where they can set their time. The Red MAC is a thing saying your DSL or cable modem provider will only give you access if you have a certain MAC address. This allows you to basically clone your MAC address of your cable modem onto that NIC. Port scan detection. There's so many freaking port scans. It could be good, could be bad. This is basically the documentation if you want to read more. Get the software, how-tos for IPCOP, how to do it, where you can get add-ons, and the two most important add-ons here. I think that's the end. Membership.
Yeah.
Well, here.
Do you have any pictures?
No, I don't have any pictures.
It's
Because
a
the
little
room's
bitty
this
bitty
big.
room with
Somebody
a lot of servers and a lot of hot.
Secret.
It's barely enough room to lay a hat and a few friends.
She's locked out.
So I'd like to at least open up for some questions. So we're just going to run through this. This slide is about membership and lab access. You really need to control access to the lab. Make sure that only trusted people have physical access. People are responsible. And have remote access restrictions so people aren't trashing your stuff. The lab we have, the janitorial staff does not come clean it up, which is the way we like it, because we'd rather nobody ever come in that we don't want in there. Just because we're sloppy and we're embarrassed if people see our names. And we had the same setup in New Orleans that I was involved with. Let's go to the next slide. Lab projects, these are just ideas, and some of this stuff we've already explored and done some of in our lab. These are the kinds of things you can do in your lab too. And this talk is really to tell you what we've done so you can learn by what we've done and maybe do the same thing, because it's a really cool asset. And I think, that's the end. So now we'd like to open it up for any questions, because if you're interested in this and you want to know anything about what our experience has been like, or anything, if you want to know what size shoes we wear, now's the time.
So you say you have an 80-video room, right? Do you do training outside of that, set up remote SSH tunnel and then connect to it or something?
We're currently in the process of probably moving the lab from where it's at, not just because of space constraints, although that is one of the reasons, but also because of inbound internet access, which we still don't have. So, we don't have any inbound traffic. The only inbound traffic we've ever had was through a reverse shell. So, it was inbound through outbound, as was explained earlier, which is not really the best way to do this.
But as far as a learning, environment, you're talking about presentations.
Or no, if you bring, how many, if you have 4 or 5 kids in there with laptops, could you?
Oh yeah, we could. We've had probably 12 people there at one point, so.
Yeah, and actually in the lab in New Orleans, we held, and our cons were private, all but one. They were not open to the public, just because. And we actually had one of our cons in one of the lab offices, and we had some big lab space, and we were able to fit maybe half this room in for a con one weekend, and another weekend, some tenant had vacated an entire floor, and they had huge rooms. And the landlord, we asked the landlord, hey, can we rent, that space since it's not in use, because we want to hold another con? And they said, we'll give you the whole floor for free, whatever, we like you guys, and, we had a con in there. And, we're looking at larger space now to have some training sessions. We've talked about giving certification training, offering it, free stuff, whatever, because it's all about giving back to the community.
Well, what's the biggest bang for the buck you've gotten out of the lab so far? I mean, what's the thing you say, wow, I'm glad we built the lab because of this? Besides the tax.
So my personal thing, I mean, the tax thing, sure, but I don't have any money to give. If I did,
It's not the tax thing.
no. The thing for me is being a student and being in this environment and having people like Vic and Unq and Kerbob who have given their time and their effort to help me learn. That's by far the coolest thing.
I mean, and we have guys who come in there, and we've had, machines that have been rebuilt and rebuilt and rebuilt, and it's a learning thing. So people can come in there and trash machines over and over while they're learning how to do something. They can say, hey, I want to try to set up this kind of node, or run this kind of software, or write this kind of code. And it's a heterogeneous environment. We want a wide mixture of hardware and software so that we have a lot of options, which I think Nick went over. Variety is the spice of life.
I'm not welcome.
We'd like to eventually have like a monthly work day or something where the lab will be open. Anybody who wants to come, you're having trouble installing something, whatever you want to bring. If we don't know the answer, we'll figure it out together. Everybody will learn. It's all about learning is what the lab is really about.
I've talked with groups at other cons about this, and they've said they wanted to do the same thing, which is kind of why we had this talk today. But also, some of the ideas that they've come up with to make money for their lab has been a lot of things like they said, well, we might mod Xboxes or hardware for people and things like that as a group. But when you sit down and think about it, a lot of times real life gets in the way of that. So if you can do things to make money with your lab that is almost, you don't even have to touch it. It's the lab just does it. It's the equipment, the hardware, and everything. Someone logs in and does something. It's not something that someone needs done next week, so you have a time limit, and then you have to stop things in real life because that's usually not going to happen. You're usually going to take care of real life things first. So when things come up like that, it's better to have something that just runs on its own. Say you're selling, shell accounts or things like that. Stuff that you don't actually have to touch, but it's still going to make a little bit of money for you.
And we have guys that come in to just do some work in there. Guys that come in to do work in there, whether it's work or homework or whatever, just because it's a quiet place, it's away from home and TV and the roommate or the wife and kids or whatever. So, there's a lot of value, there's a lot of uses, so it can realize a lot of potential.
Who actually owns the hardware? Is it like a corporation?
The nonprofit does, and we actually had a discussion about that in one of our meetings recently, where what happens if the nonprofit decides to disappear. All of our equipment is donated to the EFF in the event that happens.
Yeah, our articles of incorporation say that if we dissolve, all the assets are liquidated and we give the funds to the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
Yep.
I have some Cisco gear that
I'm a proud member of.
Yeah, we've also got people who are donating.
I've got some equipment that's mine. I can't just give it away, but I don't have a problem with having it in the lab. Somebody wants to learn how to configure a 2600 router. Here's one. Have at it. You want to use your book. You want to try to figure it out yourself. Ask us questions. The stuff that people can't necessarily easily get their hands on to learn on.
And part of the deal with that, I guess, would be just assuming that it's in the lab and that something could happen to it, but you're sort of assuming nothing is going
Well,
to.
we trust the people that have keys. Not everybody has a key to the lab. But if you want to go to the lab, all you got to do is ask somebody who has a key or post on the forum, and I want to go to the lab. If somebody that has a key can go, they'll go.
Yeah. Having somebody there who is trusted along with the people who probably aren't as well trusted.
But most of the hardware is donated. It's not owned by an individual. Q is the one
That's my real
exception.
question. Somebody gets upset.
Yeah.
So I'm taking all my toys and going somewhere else.
And in No Lab, we had a big MVS mainframe that a hospital in Hattiesburg, Mississippi gave us. Because it wasn't Y2K compliant, although they weren't really doing much date calculation. And this thing weighed like 2,000 pounds. We went and got it. And here's a HIPAA horror story. It was loaded with patient data. And they gave it to us. And they gave us backups. Yeah. But, you know, it was donations, you know. And so we
Don't worry, we sold it all.
There's your fundraising.
Get with the professor and decide where to send
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
We're done. We're out of time. Okay. Well, thank you. It's been fun.
These folks have done great work. One more time, come on. So now I get the esteemed privilege of announcing the winner of the wireless access point war drive that happened last night. Unfortunately, the results are still being looked over for who got the hard drive, which was the geocaching sub-event. But the winner of the optical mouse for the access point hunt was Callie and Solar. So congratulations. They got 864 access points, which is an ass load of access points. So I don't even know what an ass load is, but I'm sure it's close to an ass load.
I bet you do know what an ass load is.
It's $5, that's what it is.
I was just checking to make sure you're all still awake. And it is $5, same as in town. That was a joke if you're over 40. The next talk, free BSG jails. I've actually heard a similar talk to this previously this year. It was really good. I don't know, are you doing this talk? It's your name on this piece of paper.
Look closer. It's W.
Oh.
That's our pseudo.
That's fucked up. But they're only a letter off. I mean,
it's our initials.
yeah, it didn't trigger my Levenstein distance algorithm. So, so DXS's brother, WXS, is doing a free BSD jail talk. These are really useful for doing all kinds of things, but I don't want to give too much away. And just let me know when you're ready. In the meantime, I want to encourage you to buy a shirt. They're $15. Again, a bargain at any price. I think we still have all sizes available. No, we're out of small. That doesn't make any sense. Apparently people are using them as napkins. So, okay. And after this talk, we're going to give away this really cool magnetic stripe reader, which you can use to hack Metro cards. No, you can't.
You can read them.
Give me a minute. Sorry.
One moment while his computer drops his docs.
It's about to be done.
Also remember there's swag still available. And I'm still available to have sex with anybody here. Except Chesty Hammerfield. Hammer time. Chesty.
What? Yes.
Yes.
I'm listening now.
I just wanted to thank you and Kerbob actually for the hacker grill out, the hacker barbecue. That was fantastic. Thank you for trying to feed 50 people. Anybody who ate our fucking free food and drank our free booze, say thank you later.
They did say that this morning when they woke up with the free hangover.
They don't call it punch.
That punch was delicious. It was the bucket. It was good.
Okay, yeah. That's good enough, whatever.
They call me the dumpster, but that's for a different reason.
Oh.
Okay, give me a minute to try this thing out there. Okay, so, move out of the way. How the hell is that off? Give me a second, apparently.
Just mirror your display and it'll straighten out.
I prefer not to mirror it because I actually have notes up here.